Hello, my name is Michael O'Keefe, aka The Movie Wizard. If you enjoy this interview and want to hear more top-notch film industry conversations, please press the thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and hit the bell to stay in the know. Number 7. All That I Am is a documentary that looks at a young woman who was abducted to be sexually abused during a large part of her childhood and entire adolescence, then returns to her family, which is an intense setup. You sort of wonder how she'll fare. She fares roughly as the mental trauma is immense, and you don't just fit into society after something so intense happens to you. She missed years of school, and her siblings seem to barely remember her. The documentary is so emotionally intense, and the journey is an informative one to see how you can come back into Norwegian society after this happens to you and how your family will treat you. The state's role in this is interesting to see, as well from the education system to the legal system. This certainly isn't a light watch, but it might help people get over their trauma or at least inform them on what happens when you return. Number 6. I Am Samuel is a documentary examining homosexuality as well as attitudes towards it in Kenya that highlights in an empathetic light one conservative father learning to accept his gay son, but on his own terms. This is done very gradually and is a nice thing to see. But there is a scene of a beating of a gay man that is difficult to watch, even when the gore is blurred out, showing how much must be overcome to get a non-homophobic Kenya. The gay man seems to live in secret, unfortunately, but so many people around the world have a macho disposition or traditional values, so getting to a point globally where same-sex attraction is normalized still seems daunting. The storytelling in I Am Samuel is strong and pretty low-key visually, allowing us to spend time and understand the people being followed emotionally. So whether we agree with their takes on things, we spend enough time with them to understand their point of view. Number 5. The Eighth looks at the 2018 referendum to legalize abortion in Ireland, and all that was overcome, beginning with overturning the Eighth Amendment to the Irish Constitution done in the 1980s to protect the rights of the unborn. The movie is pro-choice in its stance, but is sympathetic to the pro-life argument, showing politicians and people who have this position in a humane light, which can be rare in polarized conversation. The doc is a nice way to understand religious and secular society within Ireland, and shows that change can take time but can happen. However, it should still be explained constantly, especially in a very religious country. The activism is there in the documentary, but it's neither heavy-handed nor cruel. It makes sense to the viewer, but of course, if you're pro-life, you may not be converted to the cause, but you should still be able to view it in a light that isn't a knee-jerk sort of way. Number 4. Things We Dare Not Do is a documentary that looks at a small beach community in Mexico where the parents go off to work in the city and the kids are there over the summer, unattended, roaming around and living life. A violent incident happens and the community suffers from anxiety afterwards. And it is at this point a trans 16-year-old is focused on and has to deal with the judgment for the macho community, but gets acceptance from her family. The documentary really shifts, but naturally it is all day-in-life stuff, and then this emerges as the issue that arises as a subject matter, and a really cool documentary that is so nice visually because of the location. Things We Dare Not Do creeps into things, and it's a solid piece of work that you should try and watch. Number 3. Finding Sally is helpful for people like me who are pretty ignorant about the political situation in Ethiopia, and thankfully director Tamara Dawit fills in some blanks by getting her family story out there in a documentary. The film looks at a suppressed uprising in the 70s, the monarchy, and the current situation in Ethiopia, but it is the story of a family dealing with all these issues that helps contextualize things. The patriarch of the family was Ethiopia's first ambassador to Canada, so Ottawa is a part of this documentary, from an unfortunate story involving Pierre Trudeau to mentioning of Lisgar High School. The story is not a lecture or a book, but a proof that documentaries still have the tremendous ability to educate us about an issue with the emotional journey of a real life captured within the narrative of a film. Number 2. I, Human looks at the scary places technology has taken us, from warfare to automation to less convincingly in the narrative, radicalization. Hey, I think the first two things lead to our increased radicalization. It's sort of a crash course touching on the variety of issues facing humanity regarding technology, instead of focusing on an individual consequence of new trends regarding technologies. It sort of gives you a more general sense. The documentary has fascinating subject matter and experts that are engaging, so it doesn't need to make you an expert on any one issue regarding the tech trends, and it also manages to stay entertaining for the entire duration. If you don't like feeling scared, this may be too strong for you, but if you want to be a contemporary thinker, it is kind of important to know where we're heading in regards to our technology policies that have an effect on all of us. Number 1. Mayor is a cool documentary from Palestine that looks at the current second-term mayor in the predominantly Christian city Ramallah. This is a wonderful documentary because it shows that a place constantly condemned for support of terrorism actually has a pragmatic leader that is not interested in aggressive posturing or action, but infrastructure and stability. This is the kind of story you never get from the news, and it's a really positive and affirmative story for Palestine, and a piece of work anyone interested in the region, no matter their position, should certainly check out. If you have at this point in your life never checked out a documentary about Palestine, this is actually a wonderful entry point because it's humanizing and the proper contextualization because it shows that we all have the same desires as human beings. The documentary looks at an international issue from a municipal point of view, which is so refreshing.